Gentlemen, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever wanted a woman to miss you so much that your silence echoes in her soul, not out of manipulation, but from a place of deep self-respect, mystery, and power? Women don't miss the dinners, the dates, or even the physical presence as much as they miss how they felt when they were with you. And that's the first secret most men overlook. You don't want to be remembered for what you did. You want to be remembered for how deeply you stirred her emotionally. That emotional imprint is what lingers when you're gone. It's what plays in her mind late at night when she's alone with her thoughts. Think about it. Have you ever heard a woman say, "I miss how he made me feel safe," or "I miss how he made me laugh even on my worst days"? That's what makes her reach for the phone. That's what makes her heart ache when you're not around. You have to go beyond surface level attraction. You need to connect with her on a level that very few men ever reach. Not by being overly emotional or pouring your heart out too soon, but by creating subtle, powerful moments that trigger emotional depth. It could be the calm confidence in your voice when you speak about your purpose, or the way you listen really listen, without trying to fix or judge. It's in those rare moments when she feels completely seen, completely accepted, and completely understood. This kind of connection doesn't come from being needy, overly available, or trying to impress her with grand gestures. It comes from being fully present in the moment. When you're with her, you're not checking your phone every 5 seconds. You're not trying to one-up her stories. You're there, engaged, grounded. You speak with intention. You look her in the eye with certainty, and more importantly, you allow silence to exist without trying to fill it with noise. In that silence, she feels something stable, masculine, and rare. Now here's where it gets powerful. Once she experiences that feeling with you, it becomes tied to you. Every time she feels emotionally scattered or ungrounded in her life, she'll subconsciously search for that presence again. She may not even realize why she's thinking about you. It's because she's chasing the emotional imprint you left behind. This is how women become emotionally hooked without even understanding how or why. If you want her to miss you badly, you don't need constant contact. You don't need to flood her DM or buy her affection. You need to create a memory of how she felt in your energy. Was she calmer around you? Did she laugh more? Did she feel more feminine, more herself, more alive? If the answer is yes, then she will miss that feeling. And because that feeling is uniquely tied to your presence, she will miss you. And here's the truth most men ignore. Emotions are not logical. She might be with someone else. She might even tell herself she's over you. But if you gave her an emotional experience no other man has, she'll carry it like an invisible scar. She'll compare every new man to the standard you set without even realizing it. Emotional imprints are powerful because they don't fade with time like physical attraction. They stay, they haunt, and they return when she least expects it, especially in moments of solitude, silence, or self-doubt. That's why you don't chase. You don't beg. You don't plead for her to come back or notice you. You plant emotional seeds that grow in your absence. You give her the gift of presence and then the sting of your absence. And eventually, if you did it right, she'll find herself scrolling through old photos, rereading texts, wondering how she let you slip away, not because of what you did, but because of how you made her feel. That's the emotional fingerprint no other man can replicate. Most men completely underestimate the raw, psychological power of absence. It's not just about disappearing or playing hard to get. It's about understanding that space is one of the most potent tools in human attraction. When you're always there, always calling, always texting, always available, you actually train her to take you for granted. You become part of the background noise, predictable, comfortable, non-threatening. And while comfort may sound like a good thing, it doesn't spark longing or desire. Desire needs friction, it needs curiosity, it needs that gap between presence and absence to breathe and grow. When a man understands the power of intentional absence, he moves differently. He's not always the first to respond. He doesn't make himself easily accessible. He's focused on his mission, his purpose, his evolution. Not because he's playing games, but because he understands that high value is rooted in scarcity. The more available something is, the less it's valued. This is human psychology at its core. You can test this with anything in life: gold, time, energy, attention. When it's rare, it's cherished. When it's abundant, it's ignored. When you pull back, not out of bitterness or ego, but from a grounded sense of self-worth, you create an emotional vacuum, and human nature hates a vacuum. She starts wondering what happened. Did you lose interest? Did something change? Is she no longer desired? That's when the thoughts start spiraling. That's when your presence, once taken for granted, becomes an itch she can't scratch. Suddenly, the man who used to be just a message away now feels distant. And that distance becomes magnetic. Absence creates mystery, and mystery creates obsession. When a woman knows everything you're doing, thinking, and feeling, there's no suspense, no tension. But when you become quiet, when you stop broadcasting your every move, she starts filling in the blanks herself. Her imagination begins to work overtime. Maybe she thinks you're moving on. Maybe she imagines you're with someone else. And the more she thinks about what you're doing, the more she feels the lack of your presence. But here's where most men go wrong. They confuse absence with coldness. They go silent, but with anger. They disappear, but with bitterness. That's not attractive. That's emotional immaturity. Real absence comes from inner stillness. You're not avoiding her. You're investing in yourself. You're not punishing her. You're prioritizing your time. There's a quiet confidence in that. A man who can walk away without explanation, without emotional drama, speaks louder than any man begging for attention ever could. This is especially powerful if you were once emotionally available and present. Because now, the contrast between who you were and who you are is stark. That shift is what hits her the hardest. It's not just that you're gone, it's that the version of you she once relied on no longer exists in the same way. You're evolving, you're busy, you're focused, and that new energy disrupts her emotional certainty. She starts thinking, what happened to him? Why did he pull away? Did I lose him? Did I mess this up? That kind of thinking leads to missing you. Deeply, painfully, because it's not just about physical presence. It's about emotional contrast. The man who could make her laugh, who could ground her, who once gave her attention so freely, has now shifted his focus inward. That's not just noticed, it's asterisk felt. Asterisk, and it triggers a powerful emotional reaction because it forces her to confront the fact that your presence was never guaranteed. The real power of absence is that it teaches her something about herself. It shows her what life feels like without you, and if you were a man of substance, emotional control, and masculine presence, then your absence is a heavy silence, one that lingers, one that causes her to check her phone late at night. One that makes her think about sending a message just to test the waters, but you're not there, not in the way you used to be, and that shift forces her to realize that maybe, just maybe, she lost something valuable. Not because you told her, not because you begged her to see it, but because you were wise enough to let silence do the talking. Curiosity is a woman's emotional fuel. What she can't fully figure out, she continues to think about. What she can't control, she begins to desire. This is the psychological foundation of mystery, and if you want a woman to miss you badly, you have to master the art of sparking and sustaining her curiosity. Most men think that winning a woman's attention is about constantly engaging her, being expressive, pouring out feelings, telling her everything. But the truth is, the more she knows, the less she wonders. And once she stops wondering, she stops missing you. When you're unpredictable, when you're not fully readable, you tap into a part of her mind that wants to solve puzzles. Human nature, especially in emotionally attuned women, leans toward curiosity. If she knows what you're doing at all times, where you're going, what you're thinking, and how you feel, she no longer has to think about you. You've removed all the tension. You've closed the emotional loop. And she moves on because there's no mystery left to chase. But when you're selective about what you reveal, when you move in silence and let her fill in the blanks with her imagination, her emotional investment increases. She starts to speculate. She starts to feel the pull of questions without answers. That's what keeps her up at night. That's what drives her to reread your old texts, to check your socials without liking anything, to talk about you with her friends just to make sense of what you might be thinking. Creating curiosity doesn't mean being manipulative. It means being intentional. You don't have to hide who you are, but you do have to learn restraint. Don't always rush to explain yourself. Don't always give her immediate access to your thoughts or your time. Share parts of yourself, but leave enough out that she's always wondering what lies beneath. Speak less than you feel, post less than you do. Show up when you choose to, not when she expects you to. Be consistent in your energy, but unpredictable in your patterns. When she thinks she's figured you out, switch it up, not in a chaotic or disrespectful way, but in a way that reminds her she doesn't fully own your mind. This is why men who overshare often find themselves quickly forgotten. A woman might appreciate the openness in the moment, but when there's nothing left to discover, the emotional investment dies. She may not even realize it. It just happens. She stops reaching out. She stops wondering about you. She's moved on to a new emotional puzzle, someone who provides a bit of friction, a bit of space, a bit of ambiguity, and this is where the high-value man stands apart. He understands that emotional tension is necessary for sustained interest. He creates it not by playing games, but by simply not over-explaining, not oversharing, and not being overly accessible. Every time you're slightly vague, every time you delay a response, every time you leave a conversation open-ended, you are giving her mind something to chew on. And that's when the missing starts. She plays out scenarios in her head. She wonders if you've lost interest. She starts thinking, was he always this quiet? Or did I say something wrong? And the more her mind circles these thoughts, the more emotionally attached she becomes to the idea of you. You become not just a man asterisk, you become a question mark. Asterisk and questions are powerful because they keep people engaged far longer than answers do. Even in person, you can stimulate this curiosity through energy and presence. Maintain eye contact, but don't explain every look. Speak with intention, but not with full transparency. Share a story, but leave out the ending. Make her asterisk feel asterisk something, but don't break it down with analysis. Let her experience your presence as something layered, something that unfolds slowly over time. The men who are missed most are the ones who remain just out of reach, not physically, but emotionally and intellectually. Another way to build curiosity is through unpredictability. Routine kills romantic intrigue. If she always knows when you'll text, when you'll call, or what you'll say, her emotional response becomes numb. But when you throw in a curveball, disappear for a day, then return with calm energy, change your tone, surprise her with depth she didn't expect, she becomes emotionally stimulated again. It resets the dynamic. It reminds her that she doesn't fully have you figured out, and that realization keeps you alive in her thoughts. Curiosity also thrives in silence. When you suddenly stop talking or withdraw your energy without explanation, her imagination takes over. She replays your conversations. She wonders if you're seeing someone else. She questions what changed, and that internal questioning is far more powerful than anything you could say with words, because in those quiet spaces, she fills the void with you asterisk. She creates stories, fantasies, regrets, and every single one of those thoughts ties her deeper into your emotional orbit. If you want a woman to miss you badly, even if she's not emotionally invested right now, understand this. You don't have to make her fall in love instantly. You just have to get her mind to orbit around your presence, and the best way to do that is to become the man she can't fully understand, the man whose thoughts are just out of reach, the man who gives her enough to feel, but never enough to fully solve. Because once she's curious, she's hooked, and once she's hooked, the missing begins, slowly, then all at once. A man's energy is either magnetic or repellent. There is no in-between. The truth is, women are far more intuitive than most men give them credit for. They don't just hear what you say, they feel who you are. They can sense your emotional state, your confidence, your inner peace, or lack of it. That's why cultivating masculine energy is not just about posture, tone, or image. It's about the silent, unshakable presence that you carry everywhere you go. If you want a woman to miss you deeply, you need to leave behind more than memories. You need to leave behind an emotional residue of masculine certainty. When you walk into a room, your energy speaks before you do. Are you grounded or scattered? Are you needy or whole? Are you emotionally reactive or internally stable? A woman feels these things even if she can't articulate them. She might say she just feels different around you, or that you make her feel safe or calm. But those are just words trying to capture something deeper, your masculine presence, the kind of presence that makes her breathe easier when she's near it, and the kind of absence that makes her feel unbalanced when it's gone. The key is not to act masculine, it's to be masculine. That starts with stillness. Emotional stillness is rare in a world full of frantic people chasing validation, attention, or comfort. Most men are constantly reacting, trying to impress, trying to win approval, trying to avoid rejection. But when a man is still, when he is rooted in his purpose, emotionally detached from outcomes, and unbothered by external noise, he becomes magnetic. He becomes the calm in her storm, and when that calm vanishes, she notices. Not because you said anything dramatic, not because you ghosted her out of immaturity, but because the energy she once felt secure in is no longer accessible. Masculine energy isn't loud, it doesn't seek attention, it doesn't brag, it simply is asterisk. It's in how you breathe, how you sit, how you listen without needing to speak, how you make decisions without explaining yourself. It's in your ability to hold tension, not just sexual tension, but emotional tension, conversational tension, even silence. When most men get nervous in silence, you remain still. When others try to fill the gap with chatter, you let the moment breathe. That self-control signals strength. It tells her, this man isn't seeking comfort. He is the comfort. You want to become the man whose presence shifts the room, the kind of man who doesn't chase, but naturally attracts. Not because you're trying to play games, but because you know that chasing is a signal of emotional emptiness. Masculine energy doesn't need, it chooses, and that distinction is everything. When a woman feels that you are choosing her, not needing her, she respects you differently. She shows up differently. She starts to value your time, your attention, and your presence because she knows you won't offer it carelessly. You cultivate this kind of energy by mastering your internal world. That means healing the wounds that make you reactive. It means facing your fears of abandonment, rejection, or inadequacy. It means becoming so secure in your identity that no woman, no compliment, no rejection can shake your foundation. And from that place of self-possession, you radiate something that's extremely rare, certainty. Women are drawn to certainty, not arrogance, not fake bravado, but real, grounded certainty in who you are and where you're going. This is also why women often fall hardest for the man who says the least, who remains slightly out of reach, who doesn't offer explanations for his choices. Not because he's being cold or disrespectful, but because he lives on purpose. And when a man is deeply rooted in purpose, everything else becomes secondary, including her. And that might sound counterintuitive, but it's exactly why she starts to crave your presence. Because your attention is rare. Because your focus is powerful. Because your time isn't freely given, it's earned. A man who embodies strong masculine energy never begs to be missed. He never chases validation. He simply focuses on being the most grounded, powerful version of himself. And in doing so, he becomes unforgettable. His absence isn't just silence. It's a noticeable shift in her emotional experience. She doesn't just think, I haven't heard from him. She feels the loss of your presence. She notices how the conversations lack depth, how her body feels more tense, how her world feels slightly off balance. That is the power of masculine energy. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just exists. Calm, focused, intentional. And once a woman experiences that, every other man she meets is subconsciously compared to it. She may move on physically, but emotionally, there's a part of her that stays tied to that memory, because that kind of energy isn't just rare, it's irreplaceable. And once it's gone, she doesn't just remember you. She starts to feel the ache of your absence, and that ache is what makes her miss you. Not the words you said, not the things you did, but the energy you carried and the emotional stability you gave her without ever needing to say a word. One of the most misunderstood aspects of male attraction is emotional control. Most men think being emotional means being open, expressive, or vulnerable. And while there's a time and place for those things, emotional control is something entirely different. It's about self-mastery. It's about understanding your emotional impulses and choosing when, where, and how to express them with intention. This control is not about suppression. It's about awareness and regulation. And when you master this, women don't just notice. They feel it deeply. And when that controlled emotional energy is withdrawn, it leaves a gaping void that's almost impossible for her to ignore. Emotional control creates stability, and stability is the bedrock of masculine attraction. A woman doesn't want to feel like she's the emotional leader in the dynamic. She doesn't want to be the one constantly managing the emotional temperature of the relationship. When a man is emotionally unstable, when he reacts quickly, gets jealous easily, complains, overshares his insecurities, or becomes defensive, he creates emotional labor for her. She starts to feel like she has to handle him, and that responsibility kills desire. It might invite sympathy, but it never invites longing. It never invites the kind of missing that makes her restless. Emotional instability breeds repulsion because it signals weakness, and no woman desires weakness, even if she pities it. Now contrast that with a man who feels everything but doesn't let everything control him. He's not robotic, he's just composed. He doesn't explode when things go wrong. He doesn't send long, needy texts when she pulls away. He doesn't overreact to tests, delays, or distance. Instead, he pauses, he reflects, he observes, and then he chooses his response from a place of clarity, not chaos. That calmness is intoxicating. She might not even understand why she feels safer with him, but it's there. That emotional containment, that inner restraint, tells her that this man is in control, not just of the situation, but of himself. And a man who can control himself is a man who can be trusted, desired, and most importantly missed. Think about it. When a woman knows that she can't easily shake your center, you become rare. In today's emotional climate, where everyone is reacting, oversharing, seeking validation, and emotionally dumping, the man who remains still becomes like gravity. You ground her not with your words, but with your emotional presence. And when you pull back from that position, not out of spite, but from strength, she doesn't just notice the absence. She feels the loss of emotional safety. The quiet void where your stable energy used to be becomes a growing discomfort. That discomfort is what turns into longing. That longing becomes the beginning of her missing you. Emotional control also reveals itself in how you handle feminine energy. A lot of men get confused, even frustrated, when women are emotional, moody, or inconsistent. But that's the nature of feminine energy. It flows, it changes, it tests. When you react emotionally to her fluctuations, you lose polarity. You become like her instead of being her counterbalance. But when you respond with patience, with presence, and with calm direction, you stand out. You're no longer just a man, you're a leader in the dynamic. You're the one she can lean on, even when she's not at her best. That consistency is addictive, and once she becomes emotionally dependent on that consistency, any time you withdraw it, she starts to spiral internally. She questions herself, she replays conversations, she wonders where you went and why. That's not manipulation. That's the natural consequence of removing something rare and valuable emotional containment . Another layer of emotional control is how you handle uncertainty. Most people panic when they don't know what's next. They get anxious, start overthinking, and act out of fear. But a man who has mastered himself knows that uncertainty is a test, and his calm in the face of that test becomes his power. Whether it's a delay in her response, a cooling off in her energy, or a full withdrawal, he doesn't chase. He doesn't confront her with desperation. He doesn't demand explanations or resolution. He simply observes and continues to lead his life with composure. That's when she feels the shift. That's when she notices that her actions didn't destabilize him, and that realization creates emotional friction in her mind, because suddenly she's not in control of the emotional tempo anymore. You are. And that loss of control creates desire. Emotional control also dictates how you talk about your feelings. It's not about bottling things up, but about choosing your moments. You don't dump emotions on her just because you're overwhelmed. You reveal feelings slowly, deliberately, with intention, and when you do, they hit harder, because she knows you're not a man who talks just to talk. You talk when it matters, you reveal when it counts. That kind of emotional discipline creates impact. She remembers your words. She replays your tone. She analyzes your expressions. Why? Because your emotions aren't noise. They're asterisk signals asterisk. And when that signal goes quiet, she misses the clarity. The feeling of being understood, the masculine mirror you once held up to her emotions. In a world full of emotionally undisciplined men, the one who maintains composure becomes unforgettable. He doesn't need to shout, cry, beg, or manipulate. He simply stands firm in his frame, and when he walks away, when he decides to pull back and protect his peace, it's not just a physical absence. It's an energetic shift. She feels the loss of masculine containment, the loss of grounded emotional leadership. And that loss becomes emotional gravity. It pulls her thoughts back to you, again and again, quietly, powerfully, endlessly, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't say, because of what you withheld, because of the strength you embodied in silence. Scarcity is one of the most powerful psychological triggers in human behavior. It taps into a primal part of the brain that values what is rare, what is limited, what cannot be easily replaced. And this principle doesn't just apply to material things. It applies to people too. When you are too available, too easy to reach, too willing to drop everything at her convenience, you lose perceived value. Your presence becomes ordinary, expected, even disposable. But when you embody true scarcity, not by playing childish games, but by genuinely being selective with your time, energy, and emotional availability, you become unforgettable. You become the man she didn't realize she'd crave until he was gone. Most men give their time away like it means nothing. They think constant communication is how to maintain attraction. They think that texting her back immediately, always being there when she needs someone, or never saying no is the way to win her loyalty. What they don't realize is that they're training her to take them for granted. They're making themselves predictable, and predictability kills mystery. It kills excitement. It removes the tension that fuels desire. On the other hand, when you operate with purpose, when you have a life that's full, structured, and meaningful, your attention becomes a luxury, not a guarantee. And people crave what they can't have. They long for what is just slightly out of reach. Scarcity doesn't mean ignoring her for no reason. It means showing that your time is valuable, that you're not always at her emotional mercy, that your life isn't orbiting around her attention. When she texts you, you don't jump to respond like a dog trained for a treat. You take your time, not out of pettiness, but because your mind is focused on things that matter, your goals, your routines, your mission. That subtle distance makes her wonder. It creates space for curiosity. She starts thinking about you more because you're not always there to satisfy her every moment of interest. That absence creates tension, and tension is the seed of emotional attachment. What you need to understand is that women value what they have to earn. The harder something is to obtain, the more they emotionally invest in it. If she feels that your attention, your affection, your time is something she doesn't have automatic access to, she'll begin to try harder. She'll replay conversations in her mind. She'll analyze your texts. She'll ask her friends what they think, and all of this is happening while you remain steady in your lane, focused, grounded, and unmoved. That emotional investment she's building while you maintain your composure is what leads to obsession. It's what makes her check her phone at night. It's what makes her miss you long after you've stopped reaching out. Scarcity also creates contrast. If you're always available, she can't appreciate the difference between having you and not having you. But if your presence is rare, meaningful, and impactful, then your absence becomes noticeable. It leaves a gap in her emotional rhythm. She gets used to the feeling of security, attention, or admiration you provided, and when it disappears, even temporarily, her subconscious starts seeking it out. That's how missing someone really works. It's not about big romantic gestures. It's about the void left by the absence of consistency, presence, and emotional depth. Another thing scarcity does is it forces her to question her position. When you're not always texting her, complimenting her, or validating her, she begins to wonder where she stands. That uncertainty can be uncomfortable, but it's also what drives desire. It's what activates the part of her brain that wants to resolve ambiguity. She starts thinking about you more, reaching out more, putting in more effort, because now there's something to pursue, something to earn, something she doesn't already have complete access to. Men who are too available send a signal that says, "I have nothing better to do. You are the center of my life." But Al, you men live in such a way that their time and attention are clearly limited. Not because they're trying to manipulate anyone, but because they have standards. They don't engage in conversations just to kill time. They don't entertain emotional drama or games. They are deliberate about where they place their focus. And that deliberate nature makes their presence more powerful when it's offered, and more haunting when it's removed. You must also learn to walk away without warning, not as a tactic, but as a principle. When something no longer serves your peace, when a woman disrespects your standards or stops reciprocating your energy, you don't argue, plead, or explain. You simply retreat, disappear, detach. That silent exit, when done from a place of inner strength, shakes her more than any words ever could. Because now the attention she once had access to is gone. The emotional connection she took for granted has vanished, and the space you leave behind becomes filled with memories, questions, and regret. Scarcity isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to get, because your time is precious, because your energy is finite, because your life is full, and because you know your worth. The man who embodies true scarcity doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't chase, he doesn't explain. He lets his absence speak volumes. He knows that the most powerful way to be remembered is to be missed, and the only way to be missed is to not always be there. When a woman feels that she can lose you at any time, not because you're unstable, but because you have self-respect, she starts to value every moment she gets, every message, every look, every touch, and when those moments stop, they echo. Quietly, persistently, endlessly. So in the end, making a woman miss you isn't about manipulation, tricks, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming a man of such depth, strength, and value that your absence is felt just as strongly as your presence. When you combine emotional control, mystery, purpose, restraint, and true scarcity, you shift from being just another option to being the one that lingers in her mind long after the conversation ends. You don't chase her. You become the man she chases. And when she realizes what she lost, it's often too late. Because the kind of man you've become doesn't wait around to be chosen. He walks away, knowing that the right woman will feel the difference. and miss it every single day.